I'm remarrying a 23-year-old heiress. Poor people on welfare disappear. Haha.
3 days after we started living apart, I met John. Standing next to him was a young, beautiful woman. She intertwined her arm with John's and seemed to be on guard against me. However, I recognized that woman. Have we met before? Could I be mistaken? As John hurled terrible words at me, I desperately tried to figure out the woman's identity. Then, could it be? I remembered how I came to know this woman, and then the woman's true identity came back to me. At the same time, I couldn't help but burst into laughter.
Hey, what are you laughing at? That's creepy.
Sorry. It's just that the identity of this woman is someone I know. My name is Alice Johnson, 32 years old, single. I have been working as a nursery teacher, a job I've dreamed of since I was a student. Despite the pressures from my superiors and dealing with parents, I find solace in the smiles of the children and I'm motivated to work every day. Above all, being a nursery teacher was my aspiration. Quitting was not an option for me. Though my workplace may change, I plan to continue working in this profession until retirement. That's what I thought. However, life has taught me that things don't always go as planned. One day, invited by a friend, I attended a mixer where I met John, a man 3 years my senior. John seemed to be an executive at a well-known company around here. He achieved great results and became an executive in his 20s. People would call someone like him an elite. However, far from boasting about his career, he was a very humble man. Wow, an executive in your 20s. That's amazing.
Not really. There were quite a few others like me.
Still, it was impressive to the outside world. Since John and I were seated next to each other, our conversation flowed as if we weren't strangers. Following that, we exchanged contact information and started meeting up. After a few meetings, our relationship developed into dating. After 3 years of dating, we got married. During our relationship, John was always very kind to me. He would plan our dates and gave me wonderful gifts, not just on special occasions. Thank you, John.
I just want to see you happy.
He would say such cheesy lines, and I was swayed by every word. I felt fortunate to have met such a wonderful person. However, at that time, I didn't know John's true character. After marriage, my life changed dramatically. It all started when John suggested I quit my job as a nursery teacher. What? Why? I had intended to continue working even after marriage. John had seemed to agree with this.
Please, my mother's also said it would be better.
Your mother has nothing to do with our life, right?
Of course she does. She says she'd support our life. Besides, why do you want to work so much? We can live on my income alone.
That's not the point. Indeed, we could live on John's income alone, but I was reluctant to quit being a nursery teacher. In the end, I gave in after our discussion. We had talked about wanting children in the future, and we concluded that it might be better for me to stay home to prepare for that more comfortably. It seemed his mother had suggested the same, so I reluctantly decided to quit my job as a nursery teacher. Following John's request, we also moved closer to his parents' house. According to John, having our houses close would make it easier to receive support. It was better than living together, at least. I thought and accepted the move. I regretted not discussing our married life while we were dating, but that's a secret. I would have happily accepted it if his mother had a good personality. However, his mother's personality was, to put it mildly, not good. Her comments looked down on me, and her scrutinizing gaze was unbearable. I had hoped that marrying John and starting our life together would mean less interaction with his mother, but I was sorely mistaken. Once we moved close by, his mother began visiting our house daily. Perhaps she disliked being alone as my father-in-law had passed away. Alice, what's with all these frozen food packages? She would inspect every corner of the house during her visits, even peeking into the trash can. Hey, you don't need to go through that. You're not making my son take lunches filled with frozen food, are you? I used some frozen food, but it's not all like that. You're a stay-at-home wife now. How can you not make a lunch from scratch? Do you plan to feed our future children frozen food too? I can't believe I got such an unbelievable daughter-in-law.
I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to use frozen food now that I'm a stay-at-home wife? Indeed, I ultimately chose this path for myself. However, it was never something I truly wanted. After, the mother-in-law said her piece and left satisfied. All I could do was let out a sigh. Day after day, my mother-in-law would come over just to complain and then leave. There were times she came over when I wasn't home and would say,
"Where are you? I came all this way. Hurry back and let me in."
She seemed to enjoy tormenting me, using me as an outlet of her stress. Though I've tried to refuse her visits, getting angry every time is exhausting. Eventually, I became cautious, even just going to the convenience store nearby. However, one thing my mother-in-law kept repeating like a mantra was,
"When will you have children?"
She pressured me about having children every time we met. We haven't been able to yet.
What? Are you joking? You must be infertile.
Such insensitive comments were her way of blaming me entirely for not having children. According to her, it was all my fault, and John could never be at fault. Yet John continued to be kind to me, considering our challenge with pregnancy as something we should tackle together. He often cared about my health. We don't need to rush the kids. I mean, I'd love to give my mom a grandchild, but you're more important to me, okay? Yeah, thank you. We believed that, with mutual support, we would eventually be blessed with children. However, my hopes never materialized. 2 years later, we still hadn't had any children. By then, my mother-in-law seemed to have given up on the idea of grandchildren and stopped visiting. Simultaneously, John's behavior towards me worsened, and he began to verbally abuse me freely. Perhaps it was the stress of not having children. Or maybe he just started to dislike me. The more I thought about it, the more my thoughts spiraled negatively. But John seemed unconcerned with how I felt. Hey, where's dinner? Why isn't it ready yet? Oh, sorry. It'll be ready soon. Ugh, you're so useless. Can't cook, can't clean, can't get pregnant. My mom was right to be disgusted. Why did I end up with someone like you? I'm sorry. I no longer had the energy to fight back, and I just kept apologizing to John. Seeing me like this only encouraged him to berate me further. Complaints about the food being bad, the cleaning not thorough, even a single hair out of place could trigger a scolding. And after hurling insults at me, he would always say, "This is why you can't get pregnant." I did my best to maintain a healthy diet and lifestyle. I measured my body temperature, kept track of my menstrual cycle, and paid more attention to these things than I did when we first got married. Still, pregnancy eluded us. By this point, John would often refuse to try. I understood he was busy or tired, but if he was going to complain about not having children, shouldn't he be willing to cooperate? If you're going to say that, then cooperate. It's not something I can solve on my own. What? Shut up. Haven't I told you enough times? I'm tired. No matter how much I tried to reason with him, John would only say he was tired and showed no signs of willingness to help. If John wasn't going to cooperate, there was nothing I could do. Whenever I had a moment to myself, I couldn't help but wonder how things had come to this. I found myself wondering if this was the kind of marital life I had envisioned. I couldn't help but think that the relationship between John and me had grown so cold, perhaps it could never be restored. 6 months later, our relationship had further deteriorated. John had stopped coming home altogether. The reasons given were sudden overtime work or drinking parties. On weekends, he claimed to have work, spending little time at home. I suspected he had given up on me and was having an affair. If only he would just say he wanted a divorce. In the end, I had no choice but to live a lonely life at home. On the rare occasions John did come home, he only had harsh words for me. Why do you always look so miserable? It's disgusting. I'm sorry. Where had the John I married gone? He wasn't someone who would say someone else was disgusting. All I could do was try not to upset him further, always apologizing. However, one day after finishing shopping for dinner and returning home, I found John unusually at home. What's going on?
Oh, Alice, you're finally back.
John spoke cheerfully, which made me wary of his intentions. As I braced myself for what he might say next, he handed me a document. It was a divorce form. Divorce?
Yeah, I have no use for you anymore. There's no point in us being a couple anymore. Go ahead, become homeless or live on welfare.
I see. The clear statement that he had no use for me filled me with sadness, but at the same time, I felt a sense of relief knowing I could finally escape this life. Understood. I accepted the divorce without hesitation, which seemed to surprise John slightly. I signed the divorce papers and handed them back to him. At that moment, I felt a sense of liberation, taking a deep breath. John told me to leave by the next day, so I went back to my room to pack the essentials. The next day, while John was at work, I left the house and headed to my parents' house. I had informed my parents, but understandably, they were worried about me actually returning home.
You can stay at home as long as you need. There's no rush for anything.
Encouraged by my mother's words, I resolved to start afresh from tomorrow. 3 days after the divorce, my heart was still healing, but I knew I had to move forward. First, I began looking for a job, browsing job listings in magazines and online. Due to staff shortages, there were many openings for nursery teachers, my former profession. I considered returning to that role, saving several job listings that caught my interest. When I looked at the clock, it was past 4 p.m., an hour since I started my job research. Deciding to take a break, I went out for a walk with no particular destination in mind, just wanting to stroll. I reminisced about walking this route to school or working part-time at the supermarket. Memories flooded back. However, as I decided to head home after about 30 minutes of aimless wandering, I saw a familiar figure. John?
What? Alice?
There, in front of me, was John, accompanied by a young and beautiful woman, much younger and prettier than either John or me. She had her arm intertwined with John's, looking at me warily.
Why are you here?
That's my line. Why are you here?
Shut up. It's none of your business.
John refused to answer my question.
Hey, John, who's this woman?
Oh, she's my ex-wife. Don't worry about her, Amelia.
Ex-wife? Ew.
The woman named Amelia twisted her body, trying to act cute, but she just came off as overly flirtatious. However, I felt another emotion upon seeing Amelia. It felt like I had seen her somewhere before. Have we met? And who is this woman?
My current wife. My mom introduced us.
What? Wife?
Yeah, haha.
Had he really remarried just 3 days after our divorce? My mind went blank. Then Amelia revealed a shocking fact.
We're expecting a baby in a few months.
A baby? Considering the size of Amelia's belly, she seemed to be more than half a year pregnant. That timeline overlapped with when John started not coming home. They must have been involved since then.
Anyway,
looking at Amelia's face, John reinforced the reality.
I'm remarrying a 23-year-old heiress. 4 people on welfare disappear. Haha.
John said with a dirty laugh, which Amelia echoed with a high-pitched giggle. I'm not on welfare.
Shut up. Stop pretending.
They laughed again, leaving me feeling miserable and close to tears. But then looking at Amelia's face, I realized something. The familiarity I felt, the fact that Amelia was an heiress, everything clicked. At the same time, my tears receded and I burst into laughter. My sudden laughter made them step back.
Oh, what's she laughing at? So creepy.
This is too much. Can we go now?
Disgusted by me, they quickly left the scene. The reason I laughed at Amelia was because I knew her true identity. Indeed, Amelia was the daughter of an affluent family. However, her family's wealth was not from successful ventures. In fact, Amelia's parents' company was on the brink of bankruptcy, nearly collapsing. I had read about Amelia being introduced as an heiress with her photo in job sites and magazines a little while ago. It's rare for a wealthy family to advertise their daughter like that, which struck me as odd and memorable. Further research revealed the company was close to bankruptcy, with various forums and review sites indicating dire financial straits. Bankruptcy seemed imminent. That's the family Amelia came from. This could work to my advantage. Seeing John happy and the fact that his mother introduced Amelia, something inside me crumbled as I watched their charade unfold. I'm committed to revealing the truth to them with my own hands. They might be happy now, but I'll ensure they plummet to the depths of misery. With that resolve, I took action. The first thing I did to bring them down was to offer them a direct apology. A few days after encountering John again, I contacted him, apologizing for my laughter and expressing my wish to give a gift for the baby's birth. Initially wary, John accepted my request after sensing my regret. However, this was all part of my strategy. I had considered seeking compensation from John and Amelia through a lawyer, but I lacked solid evidence. So I pretended to be remorseful, inviting them to spill everything about their relationship and the baby, planning to record it all and submit it to a lawyer. A week later, I was in a cafe near my parents' house waiting. John and Amelia arrived 10 minutes late.
Oh, sorry.
They sat down without a hint of remorse, still entwined and flaunting their affection. I'm sorry for suddenly reaching out. I've been thinking about how rude I was last time. I wanted to apologize. Also, your baby will be born soon, right? Could I give something for the baby?
Really? Wow, you're so thoughtful.
Unaware of my intentions, John and Amelia were delighted. Good, just like that. By the way, I heard you two met through mother-in-law, right? I'd love to hear more about it. As I said this, I discreetly started recording on my smartphone.
Oh, you want to hear? Can't help it then.
As John started to boast, Amelia gazed at him adoringly. To outsiders, it might seem like an innocent love story, but the reality was far from it.
It was really tough back then.
Yeah, but I'm so happy to be with John now.
John, with his arm around a younger woman, was frankly disgusting. They fell right into my trap, eagerly sharing how much they loved each other, all of it recorded. So, you're happy to have remarried a younger woman?
Of course. I'm truly happy every day, right, Amelia?
Yes, so happy.
Their lovey-dovey talk lasted over an hour. Keeping a smile and nodding was hard, but the more they comfortably shared, the more it worked in my favor. 3 hours later, we all went our separate ways. Back home, I reviewed the recordings. Everything was clearly captured. I contacted a law firm I had in mind. After ending the day's activities, I lay in bed, unable to shake the image of John and Amelia's happy faces. Recalling them made John seem happier than he ever was with me. When did he start to dislike me? I realized I had only seen the good in John before our marriage. 2 weeks later, I called them to a nearby station under the pretense of showing them the actual baby gift. Like before, they arrived arm in arm after about 10 minutes.
You're really going all out to see the actual gift, aren't you? After looking so sad, you're actually blessing us, huh?
Yeah, that's so nice.
It is nice.
The two of them were still arm in arm, looking cozy and affectionate with each other, but their happiness would only last up to this point. Shall we go? I led them into a taxi. Our destination was a law firm. Unaware of anything, John and Amelia continued to flirt in the taxi, showing a blatant disregard for public scrutiny that was almost impressive. Minutes later, the taxi arrived at the law firm. The love-struck pair followed me without any suspicion, but John soon realized something was amiss.
Hey, what is this place?
He exclaimed loudly, but it was too late. We were ushered into a conference room by the receptionist.
Did you trick us?
What's going on?
Her loud protests were silenced by the attorney present. Did you really think I was going to give you a baby gift? Thanks for coming so willingly.
What?
As they sat down, flustered, the lawyer explained what was happening and why I had taken such actions.
You're really the worst. What's wrong with you?
But we're already divorced, right? Compensation shouldn't matter.
You can still claim compensation within 3 years of divorce, you know. All those lovey-dovey stories you told me at the cafe were recorded and submitted. The fact you were cheating hasn't changed.
You.
John sighed heavily and slouched in his chair, but he sat up quickly when the lawyer mentioned the amount of compensation.
$15,000? Impossible.
I can't pay that.
Oh, can't pay? Why not ask your parents? Amelia looked displeased at my suggestion. Ah, but that might be difficult. Your parents' company is about to go bankrupt, isn't it? No money there.
Bankrupt? What do you mean? The company was doing well.
John, who had been kept in the dark, widened his eyes in shock at Amelia. Realizing she could no longer hide the truth, Amelia's demeanor changed as she started to reveal everything.
Ah, so it's all out then. No need to hide anymore. Yes, my parents' company is on the verge of bankruptcy. I've been planning to milk this old man for all he's worth since we met, given the business was already failing. Never thought I'd get pregnant.
You? Calling me an old man?
What, just realizing now? I never wanted to marry someone like you. But since I got pregnant, I had no choice. Seriously, the worst. I can't stand it anymore. I want a divorce as soon as possible.
Amelia laughed loudly, her persona completely transformed. Shocked by Amelia's true nature, John was visibly distressed.
So you've been thinking that about me all along.
Tired of pretending. Now that it's come to this, I'm leaving you. Can't stand living with an old man like you.
Amelia.
The couple, who had appeared so happy moments ago, crumbled effortlessly. While I hadn't known Amelia's true feelings towards John, orchestrating this meeting had satisfied me, as it led to the outcome I desired. In the end, they agreed to pay the compensation in a lump sum. Amelia paid promptly, but John's payment was delayed. I had expected a quick transfer from John, considering his salary, and started to worry he might be trying to escape his responsibility. However, that concern was resolved a month later when John called me. As soon as I answered the phone, he said,
"Help me."
It turned out that John's affair had been discovered at his company, making his position there untenable, and he ultimately chose to resign. But he had spent almost all his savings on gifts for Amelia, and now found himself without any money. Since he had divorced Amelia, he had no one to turn to.
Hey, what if we got back together? I don't have any money to pay the property division. Amelia ran off with another man, and I heard her company went bankrupt. I don't know what to do anymore.
He made this call with a voice that sounded almost tearful, but of course, I had no intention of getting back together with him. Get back together? Don't make me laugh. You're running off with that woman, having no money. That's none of my concern. If you hadn't done something stupid in the first place, none of this would have happened, right? Take responsibility. After I sharply responded, John didn't say anything and just hung up. The next day, whether he borrowed money or not, the full amount I had demanded was deposited into my account. After that, I never heard from John again. Now I'm living at my parents' house, having started working as a nursery teacher again. Indeed, the smiles of children are radiant. The work environment is better than before, and I am enjoying my job every day. Being the one who was left, it was right to divorce John. Not thinking about getting married at all now. Just like I hoped years ago, now all I want is to continue working as a nursery teacher until retirement, living a healthy life.